volume. In a chaotic week of chaos, everything is chaotic and all over the place, and it's just not organised. It's just such a shambles. And I'm gonna chaotic week feedback.
Welcome to your awakening. Please stay calm as your reality is adjusted.
Please stay calm as I mute the volume so that we don't get terrible echo feedback. Welcome back again, folks. Yes, it is another edition of Excalibre, another broadcast, podcast, whatever you want to call it, on this moon day evening. And is my camera going to kick in? Yes, no, yeah, oh, right, there we go, cool. Eventually. And I'm going to I'm doing my usual. In fact, I'm doing worse than my usual because everything is just so disorganized this evening. Too busy trying to do too many things all at once and then forgetting about what I've done and what bit I haven't done. So I'm yabbering away while I'm busy trying to multitask and send invites out. I'll try sending an invite to Jeff as well, just in case he's available, because I'm sure we're going to get into topics that he talked about over the weekend. Yeah, anyway, I'll come back to that and explain that further once I've finished doing me messing about multitasking. Right, I think I've sent all the ones I was going to send for now. Shout out to the Raconteurs News guys. I think they're still ongoing at the moment. Give me pop out chat, please. I think they are still broadcasting. That was partly why I delayed, because I was waiting to see if they'd finished by 9, but they hadn't, so I carried on anyway. Come on, chat. Oh, we can catch up. But I mean, all this is like internet back in the 90s. You click on the picture and you wait like half an hour, go and get a coffee while I'm waiting for the picture to load, you know. But right, okay, got that back. Thank you. Where's my notepad? There's my notepad. Yeah, it's definitely all over the place tonight. Sorry, folks. I will get it together in a second. Yeah, it's listening to some of the Raconteurs News, although I always end up getting distracted into this multitasking of setting up the show by the time they get into their second hour. So I never get to really listen much to that, most of that second hour that they're doing. But they were talking to someone tonight that some people might find interesting to listen to if they haven't heard him and about that stuff before. And Raconteurs News, they're doing what they do. They're offering a platform. So, yeah, I can't say I agree with a lot of what some of the guests are saying or how they present their information, whatever. Yeah, that doesn't deny the fact that the guys there are doing what they said they're intending to do. You know, having a platform that allows that possibility for people to come on and talk, and you'll get a good spectrum of people and subjects and stuff like that. Yeah, so what am I doing? Looking for what screen? For that screen. That one, right. Hello to everyone in the chat room. I'm sorry, I'm a bit disjointed. I will catch up momentarily. Just say a quick hello to the people who are in the chat room already. Switch that to live chat. I don't want Google deciding what it considers to be top chat. Thank you. I'd like to just see the chat, and then I can decide for myself whether I consider things to be top chat or not, whatever. That ties in a little bit to part of what I'm going to end up ranting about tonight. It might be a bit of a rant tonight, but we shall see. Isn't it a rant every time? Mostly. Hello, Dottie. Welcome back. Greetings and well met. See you in the chat room. And Authentic Human Programming, hello. Robert Lunn, hello. And Dino, hello, Dean. I saw you in the chat earlier. Didn't get the chance to really say much else apart from hello. Dave Iron, hello. And Cardini, hello. I'm glad you made it over. Krishna, hello, mate. And Lotsam Tatro, hello. Thank you for sticking with it on the Saturday night as well. I know you were in the chat listening when I joined in on Krishna's Hangout. I got the chance on Saturday night to hang around for a few hours and chat with the guys on Krishna's Hangout. He hosts regular open hangouts most days, and he's doing an open hangout, so you can meet all kinds of people in there, come and chat. Subjects could be about whatever. So if you're looking for something where you can have the opportunity to speak with people from all walks of life, from all demographics of life, that's that new sort of environment, thanks to this technology, the internet, that kind of new town hall environment, which I think I mentioned last week. Synchronistically enough, I heard other people talking about, I think it was True Stream Media, use that kind of reference. The internet is now the new virtualized town hall where people can go and have that intercommunication with others in their society. So yeah, sometimes you can meet people that you don't really get on with or you don't agree with or whatever, but that's the town hall environment. You get to meet people from all walks of life, all spectrums of life. Corinthian Dog, hello. And Flow Destroyer, hello. And Stewie, hello Stewie. And Paula B, hello. Greetings, well met. I'll scroll it. I'm trying to be quick because I know I've already been dragging along. We started late and it's been very disjointed. So hopefully, Super Leads, hello. So you just come in as I got scrolling down the chat, hello. Okay, thanks to those people joining in the chat. I know often I do it at the beginning of the show so I can say hello to people at the beginning of the show. So obviously that means if you join later, I probably haven't seen that you're in the chat. So you might not get a shout out or might not say hello to you. Hello. Norman Smith, hello. Because I don't always concentrate on the chat while I'm doing my thing. Often I'll just refer to it occasionally. But that doesn't mean I don't see your comments at all. I regularly read through the chat box after the show when I've got the time to concentrate on what I'm looking at. Because I can only cope with a certain amount of multitasking, and I like to give attention to what I'm looking at. So I don't like to just, cursory glance and pull something out too often, because often that ends up with miscommunications because you've missed half of a conversation that people have been having. You've only caught the one bit. So I prefer to refer to it in one go when I can give it proper attention. So apologies if I miss you out. Dunfull Molmud. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right, mate, but hello. Welcome to the chat. Thanks for joining in. So I'll try and explain what I've been looking at over the week and some of the things that I felt were significant, or maybe trying to dig a little deeper for some of the principles, or maybe the arcs of the storylines, the narratives, the agendas that are going on that often are either deliberately hidden, obfuscated by the general white noise of this environment, or it just sort of ends up that way because there's so much other distractions and things going on that people miss certain things, or they don't happen to see it from a perspective that reveals that side of a storyline. They just see it from a very polarized point of view, because that's often what the media environment does. It likes to give us polarized extremes because that's what sells newspapers. That's the way it used to be before digital media, and that basic kind of marketing technique or requirement is still prevalent in this new media. So clickbait stories, that kind of thing, people understand that phrase, that phraseology. When you say clickbait, they get what you mean. And it's the same as what used to be defined as yellow journalism, when deliberately controversial headlines would be posted, or salacious gossip or whatever, because they knew that would catch readers' attention and it'd sell the newspapers. We end up with the same problem here in this environment now. Even though for a lot of people, I say a lot of us, I'll use that collective sort of pulling together of everyone, because I know there's multiple people out there doing this from a similar point of view as me. So I feel confidently enabled to use that collectivization and say we, us. A lot of us in this environment are doing this from a point of view of this is not about creating a media construct, a business or whatever. This is about participating in the conversation, the free speech conversation that is required. I'm putting my own projection onto this, that is required as we're making our way through reality, so that we don't end up falling into the worst possibilities. You know, if you're not communicating with each other about the direction you go in, then are you going to be aware of the cliff edge before you end up walking over it? Yeah? If you're too busy looking at your smartphone, you don't see the edge of the cliff coming up, stuff like that. This is taking part, this is participating in the great debate of our time. You know, it can be chopped up into lots of little separate debates and arguments and discussion. But really, you know, there's a major change going on in the world as a whole. We are going through a very significant paradigm shift in the way we live. And that, if you don't participate in that, then you're going to get dragged along by the herd. You're going to get dragged along by the wake of history. So if you end up in a place that you don't like, or that you find uncomfortable or unhealthy or whatever, I could use some cliched quotes at this point. You know, I think it was Plato. Plato said something along the lines of, if you don't participate in politics, you can't really complain when, you know, politics, you should take an interest in politics, because otherwise politics will take an interest in you. I'm paraphrasing that terribly. I can't remember the quote exactly. But if you don't participate, then you will get dragged along by the events that occur. And now that we're in a globalized environment, then feeling that you can escape the effects by going and hiding in the hills or living up a mountain or something like that, it might slow down how long it takes before you feel those effects, but it will eventually get to your door as well. So the idea of just abstaining or trying to block it out, trying to live in a little bubble of your own reality where this stuff, you know, it doesn't matter, it's just happening in that country over there, so I don't need to care about it. It will get to you eventually, because this effect now is global. I say now as if it's never happened before in history. That's debatable, you know, but what's going on at the moment is a global effect. So participating is part of what is required, I think, I feel, my point of view. I know some people think it's better to take that kind of observer position and not allow yourself to be dragged in on one side or the other and stuff like that, or to not invest any energy whatsoever in what's going on. Even if you're talking from a point of view that's counter to the majority, they still think you shouldn't even bother doing that. They think you should, you know, just go and sit in a monastery somewhere and be the observer and be outside of all this chaos, this environment. But again, I don't think that's going to really achieve what you're after. It's one thing to talk about being able to not get caught up into things that are deliberately meant to just exploit you or utilize your energy in some fashion, such as getting recruited into supporting a campaign that is actually detrimental to you and yours in the long run. You know, yeah, it's good to be aware of that kind of stuff and not get caught up into that kind of stuff, but that's not being separate in that kind of observer fashion. I think the system, as I like to refer to it as very much over the hundreds of years, over the millennia, it has proved itself to be quite happy and capable and willing to roll over the top of you if you adopt that observer position. If you sit there and think, oh, I'm just not going to believe in any of this stuff, this is all just Maya, this is all just illusion, I'm going to sit on my ass and breathe and chant mantras, and oh, that's a steamroller rolling over my house, oh shit, now I'm flat. I'm being deliberately silly, being deliberately facetious just to ridicule the idea, but I feel that's the stage we're at. So even if you disagree on the direction I'm coming at these kind of points from, or this general conversation, this mass debate that is going on, you might disagree with a lot of my points of view or my ideas or the kind of stuff I'm talking about, but not participating at all in any way whatsoever is not going to be helpful to you in the long run. This thing is so big now, you will find it very difficult to avoid it. I would argue that you will find it impossible to avoid it. It might take, like I said, it might take longer to get to you, but it will get to you eventually. So anyway, yes, what's all that got to do? What's all that waffle got to do with what's been going on this week? I put in the little subtitle. Now got into this habit of doing it as a subtitle rather than the main title. In the info box, a little subtitle, digitally branded, and I'm using the classic quote from George Orwell, Eric Blair. His real name was Eric Blair. George Orwell saying, "Ignorance is strength." Because I felt strongly that in this week that has been quite chaotic, and there's been a lot of stuff going on this week, including, things that are directly in the mainstream media, they're in the main discourse of the population, such that, they want you to take notice of these certain subjects. There's been a hell of a lot of that, but there's also been a lot of stuff going on in the background, or stuff that hardly ever gets mentioned, so it slips under the radar for many people. It's been a very busy week. Last week, and I think maybe even the week before, I mentioned the Ides of March. I don't know, this is a cliche as well. I use a lot of cliches. It's great fun. The Ides of March, it's got a reference through Shakespeare and whatever to Rome, to Caesar and him being stabbed and all that kind of stuff. Yeah. But I tried to explain it, I think, last week. It's not just that kind of reference. Please don't stick on just that reference. This is something that is more to do with the cycles that the planet goes through, which have an effect on us, the cycles in society as well. But we're obviously part of this environment, what used to be mostly natural environment. Now we've built stuff, we've urbanized areas and whatever, but part of our environment is still going through these cyclical processes. Just because we're less aware of them, or we give them less credence in how they affect our lives, because now we're also super smart and technical and civilized. Look at my house, look at my computer, look at my amazing ability to ignore nature. These cycles don't give a shit about what you think of them. They still keep going along. And this period of the year, the March, springtime period of the year, as we go towards the equinox, has often been a time period where major changes or major upheavals take place. Because there is, I feel this is, I'm saying because, like, I know for certainty, I'm partly speculating, but I feel there's also a fair amount of evidence to back up this argument. That time period of the year for us, as the beings that we are, as well as the rest of the natural world around us, it is the time period of rebirth, of new beginnings, of new growth to occur. So when the older wood is dying off, the new sprouts are coming up. That happens at this time of the year. That's part of the reason why, in an astrotheological way, much of that information has been appropriated and tied into many of the religious connotations about this time of year. There's very good reason why Easter is at this time of year, and why the concept of the resurrection is about this time of the year. Why is Jesus the Lamb of God. There's various levels that connect this together, and that's a massive subject if you want to dig into it. I mean, in terms of what I'm referring to as astrotheology, if you want to dig into that area, that it's a massive topic. There's a lot of stuff for you to go into, but for my reference at the moment, what I'm trying to say at the moment, this time of year is a time of change. And that's usually the growth and new beginnings of stuff. The winter and the end of the winter is the dying off of the old. That's why we celebrate that kind of element of the underworld. And they're going into the underworld, which is going into the depths of winter, where most people die, or often a lot of people will die. But you survive it. You've gone into the underworld and you've come back out. And now it's the beginnings of your rebirth, the re-emergence out of the cave that is the underworld. So there's a lot of reasons why this time of the year is significant. Not purely just because of the natural cycles of new shoots beginning now, lambs are born now, all that kind of stuff. But it also has a psychological, a spiritual and energetic effect that affects us and emanates out from us. In other words, we are absorbing that information, that energy from our environment. And as we do, because it's what we are transceivers, we are then transliterating that energy and emanating it into the environment around us, which is why people are more inclined to have some get up and go energy during springtime. Why are so many babies conceived during springtime? There's many ways I can sort of demonstrate the way that filters out or emanates out into our societies, our environment that we build around ourselves, as well as the natural world. So it's a time of change, and during this time, there's a hell of a lot of stuff happening at the moment that is either the end of something and the beginning of something new, or it's deliberate machinations, things being deliberately set into friction so that hopefully it will cause the destruction or death of one thing so that something new can be born out of it. Brexit, March the 29th. Why did they pick this particular time of year? That's just one amongst many things that could be used as examples of a lot of the narratives and agendas that are playing out at the moment. They've been trying to persuade people for quite a while now that they need to go through that Phoenix Gate effect of destroying the old so that we can bring the new in. We can build the new in the rubble. They want the new generation to destroy everything from the past. Forget about the past. You can't even know what the past is anyway, because now the super scientists have the ability to mess with time such that you can't even know if you've remembered something correctly. So therefore, you just forget about the past completely. And there's all these various agendas and narratives that have been pushed into the public discourse through one platform or another that are meant to reinforce those ideas. The superhero movies, I know we talked about this a while ago, in particular the Avengers saga, with the culmination in that recent Avengers movie where Thanos, the main evil character, destroys half the population of the universe, and all this kind of stuff, reinforcing these ideas that the old has to die so that the new can begin. So they've been pushing this kind of stuff a lot. And now, the last week, we've seen a lot of things. I say we, it's not just me looking at this stuff. There's been a lot of things happen over this week that are all part of those kind of narratives and agendas. Get rid of that frog before I carry on. Hopefully I won't lose my voice before things get further in, because I'll try and be quick. I'm already digressing and slowing down, but let's get on with it. Right. Digital branding and ignorance is strength. A lot of the stuff that's been happening and building up for the last few years, arguably since, in particular, 2012, and I know myself, I've been talking about this a lot over the last few years on my channel. Other people have been talking about the same kind of ideas and information and evidence to back up these arguments. the system, I'm using a generalized label, the system has been trying quite hard. They've been putting a lot of effort and funds and agents and whatever into the effort of affecting this environment such that they can either appropriate and control all the different voices out there, all the different ideas, all the different avenues of information that were available to people. They can either appropriate them and take control of them or shut them down. You know, the question of free speech has been a main question for certainly the last year, 2 years. It's been one that comes up again nearly every single day. There's somebody talking about that question, or there's another event where the system seems to be trying to fence in people's free speech or shut it down, etc. But it's not just a recent thing that's been occurring. This has been building up for a few years. And certainly this year, there has been a rapid acceleration of all this kind of stuff. Recently, I used the phrase cyanim surge. I'm not sure which episode it was I mentioned it in. It was a few episodes again. I raised the point that I felt like I was seeing certain things going on, certain patterns of stuff going on in this environment. I mean, I'm mainly looking at YouTube, so most of what I'm referring to is in reference to YouTube, which is Google, etc. But I was seeing things going on, certain stories coming up, certain talking points, certain talking heads or celebrity figures being promoted regularly, you know, doing the rounds again, doing the circle again. They sell their circus game. That to me just indicated that there's more of a push going on at the moment. This is not like it's been for the past few months. This is like they talk about when they talk about a military surge to try and finally deal with one of the conflict zones. You know, there seems to be a sudden surge in the efforts of pumping out certain ideas, certain information, certain talking heads that all seem to have links back to certain agendas and narratives that serve the purpose of certain power groups in the world picture, the world stage, the geopolitical environment. I've talked about that kind of game playing and the big chessboard kind of stuff many times in different ways. But the point being, I felt like I was seeing this beginnings of a harder push towards certain things. And now recently, that seems to be becoming pretty bloody obvious. Maybe that's my point of view, because I'm seeing sort of confirmations or correlations such that now, right, it's beyond the laws of chance now. All these, you know, how many coincidences does it take before you start to ask, is this a conspiracy? You know, I've put it that way before. I've used that kind of metaphor to try and help people, you know, question more or at least be a bit more discerning when they're looking at stuff, you know, and say, how many coincidences do you need before you start saying, hang on, is this a coincidence? This is just getting ridiculous now. The number of coincidences, but the number of correlations and data points in pattern repetition. To me, I feel it's pretty obvious now that there is in this environment a deliberate push going on to appropriate, to fence in, to control not only the people, but the subjects, the information, the topics that people want to discuss or that they feel are relevant, that are going on in their world now that need discussing. So like the rollout of certain legislation or certain technology such as 5G is one example. The fact that this is, you know, the rollout of 5G is like beyond any kind of questioning. You know, there is no public debate or discussion of, well, do we really want this technology? Well, how do we think it will better our world? Is it good for us to have it in our environment or any of those questions? No, it's just like, yeah, rubber stamped. Hey, folks, this is going to happen in your society now. Okay, this is going to happen. No question and response between those who think they're in power, the ones that are pulling those levers, and the rest of the public. There is no consultation process of any kind. They're just doing it, and you ain't got a choice in the matter, supposedly. Well, that's their attitude that they're putting out there. And that's just one agenda. You know, and I'm mainly referencing tonight things like free speech and the availability to be allowed to speak in a public way, even if you're only talking to 5 people at a time. It's having group discussions, public discussions, that virtual town hall environment. You might not agree with everything that somebody's saying. You might not want to listen to a particular speaker, but at least the opportunity is there for you to go into that virtual town hall and look and see, well, who is there that I can listen to? I'll choose to listen to that one over there. That is being curtailed at the moment. It is no coincidence. It's no happenstance that Facebook and Google have been in the news. Zuckerberg has been in the news. How they're going to crack down on all these problem areas on the internet. Google is going to introduce better algorithms to deal with the spread of nasty ideas on the internet, on the YouTubes. That brings us to this week. The events going through this week. This might seem a little bit of a side note, but I think it's worth mentioning in terms of the churning of the circus game, as I call it, when you see these same faces get moved around. They're back again talking about that topic, just to perpetuate an argument or whatever. But not so long ago, and we spoke about it last week, it was mentioned about Thomas Sheridan seemed to be having problems. And I happened to catch I take it it's the last video he ever uploaded on his YouTube channel. And for some reason he uploaded it, I think, as an unlisted video. Because I know while I was watching it, I noticed that it had the little padlock symbol next to the video title. So as far as I know, that means it's an unlisted video, which means only people who are on his subscribe to his YouTube channel with the notification set to on would have had notification of it. They would have known it was there. He's not putting it out into the open public. And it was him, having some kind of breakdown and apologizing for all the stuff he's been doing and saying that was the last ever video he was going to put up. So he's had a bit of a collapse, a breakdown of some kind. And to me, all of this kind of stuff going on at the moment is part of that more holistic picture, that bigger picture of they are cracking down in this environment. Certain talking heads are being revealed as being whatever, either not genuine for some reason, disingenuous, or just a marketeer trying to sell you shit, or an outright misinformation agent, or whatever. They're getting revealed at a faster and faster rate, so that now they are clearing the decks of people that have been fueling that circus game within this environment for decades. The market commerciality of things like conspiracy theories and anti-governmental discussions. This stuff is not new just because of the internet. Most of what we end up talking about are things that people have been talking about in one way or another for centuries, if not thousands of years. The kind of questions of like, well, is this authority that says they've got rulership over us, are they actually beneficial to us? Are they working for us? Are they servants, or are they deluded into thinking they're masters? Are they psychopaths? Are they bad people? Are they doing bad things to us? Are they exploiting us? All these questions are not new just because the internet exists. Now we have this internet technology. Those questions and the information, the arguments, the rhetoric, the whatever, just personal opinions that go along with those questions and topics are getting shared more readily, more easily. So the potential reach to the kind of people that are willing to take an interest, and also the numbers of people that can potentially coalesce into some kind of group or energy, a level of energy that can actually present a risk or a danger to the status quo. That's the way the system views it from, its mechanistic survival instinct. So that's why a lot of this stuff is about getting you stuck into polarized perpetual arguments, or getting you chasing round and round, chasing rabbits where you'll never find an end to that, a conclusion to that problem or an answer to that problem, and being under a false expectation of there being an answer or a solution to a problem, and then not being able to cope with the fact that there is no answer or solution. So you shun a particular topic or body of information because you've been convinced that, oh, there's no point asking that question, mate, you'll never find any fucking answer. So things like investigating UFOs, it's not a topic that I often talk about on these broadcasts, but that doesn't mean that I think they're all bunkum, or that I claim that I don't believe in any of the stuff to do with UFOs or aliens or whatever. No, it's just that I think it's part of the problem of the circus game that people get drawn into an economic marketplace that is dominated by celebrity talking heads that are there to just churn that cycle and treat it as an economic system. It's there to just get money out of people's pockets. If people can go into it with that awareness, they're less likely to be exploited by it. Hopefully they won't get exploited by it, because they'll be able to look at something and go, well, actually, I don't want to buy this product. I don't feel that there's enough to it to be worth my money. So no, thank you, mate. I don't want to buy today. And the shills or the salesman, the con men, whoever they are, end up having to fuck off somewhere else. You kick them off your doorstep and say, I ain't buying your shit, mate. But the system has helped enable and perpetuate the problems in people's thinking, or to deliberately exacerbate certain problems in people's thinking such that it perpetuates that environment. So they want to convince you that, oh, well, somebody out there's got an answer. Somebody, maybe somewhere out there's somebody who's got the genuine film footage of the alien autopsy. You just need to be able to find it, and then you just need to be able to afford to buy that thing, To buy, as Days has put it many times before, like the arbiters of truth. Do you have enough money to pay to hear what the arbiters of truth, the magic keys that they can dole out to you? It's all an economic cycle. And the system has worked hand in hand with that to perpetuate that kind of thinking in the majority of the public. So that any real information, any good questions that would actually reveal the mechanism for what it is, they just get bypassed because people look at it and go, oh, it's just a ridiculous circus game. There's nothing to it. So, yeah, just to give a mention for Sheridan's burnout, because, he had a little sort of arc of profit, I mean monetarily profit, that he had from several years ago when he first sort of came onto the scene. But he got to a point where he couldn't deal with the level of scrutiny. Let's put it that way. There's a lot of other people out there that have agents and things like they'll join multi-channel networks where they get a corporate level of protection that buffers their interaction between them and the public, such that they're less likely to suffer that kind of burnout of having to be honest and upfront with the general populace, in their interactions. Just think of the celebrity culture and the way what you see about them on all the media is almost never, I don't want to say totally never, because, there's a few exceptions to the rule, but it is almost always nothing like that person in real life. Even when they're supposedly, on the cover of a magazine saying they're at home in interview with so-and-so, and they're showing you their lovely home and doing a tour of the rooms and talking about their life. The majority of what they're saying is all just part of their act as a celebrity. That's not who they really are. But a lot of the public are drawn in by that level of celebrity, because it's that level of, you are not capable So you need icons to aspire to. We will create the demigods for you, the archetypes for you to clone yourself after. And then you will spend the majority of your life running in little circles where you clone yourself after one celebrity after another, whichever is your particular flavor of that month or that year or that decade. You end up cloning yourself after an archetype that they present to you. So don't be put off so much by some of the crashes of these people or these talking heads, whoever. It might not be an individual, it might be a group or whatever. But at the moment, there is an effect going on where the very fact that the system is trying to enclose this environment is having a revealing effect. Again, I think I mentioned last week, apocalypse does not mean destruction. The word apocalypse means reveal, to bring into the light, to reveal the truth that was hidden. This environment, this effect at the moment, in this environment of them cracking down on it, is having the effect of revealing more truth at the time of it's closing in. The more they crush on it, the more the truth is sort of pushed out. Even though within the fist of them cracking down, inside that little circle, the circus, if you go into the center of the herd and you look at nothing but the mainstream output, the general propaganda, you could quite easily fall into a delusion of a little matrix bubble of how the world is a certain way. But when you get pushed out by the crushing down of that fist, and all of a sudden the kind of things that you used to be interested in are now subjects that are not allowed, they're verboten now. You used to like looking into UFOs. Oh no, you're not allowed to talk about UFOs anymore. Now you're outside of that little circus, that bubble of the matrix delusion. So the truth is more revealed to you, or revealed completely. Like, oh, shit, I'm outside the fence. They always told me there was nothing outside the fence. What's going on? How can I be here outside the fence when all my life they kept telling me there's nothing beyond the fence? There is nothing, literally, a void, emptiness, vacuum, supposedly. I'm using a lot of analogies and metaphors. I do that a lot, sorry. If you find that difficult or annoying, click the X button, go and do something else. Yeah, so anyway, to get into what I was originally trying to before I digress myself, this week, Gaza was bombed again. Maybe people might have missed that. It was a little bit under the radar. I'm not saying that to be ironic, but supposedly some bad people in Gaza fired some rockets at the Israelis. So the Israelis responded with, I think, over 100 sorties, bombing, using jets to go in and bomb areas in Gaza, which is a practice that they've been doing for a long time. And I do not take it as stated, the claims about the details of those stories, because, as been shown many times before, they will often engineer these events. In other words, they'll often fake the missile attacks, the rocket attacks that they claim, or the reasoning or the justification for their then attacking back, going on a bombing campaign or whatever. Most of the time, it's bullshit. They've either engineered the situation or they've allowed it to happen in such a way that enables them to claim that justification and attack the Palestinian people again. So that happened. The Yellow Vest 18th get together happened this week. I mean, it's the 18th today, if you hadn't noticed. But they had their 18th gathering again on the weekend, and a lot of that was not shown on mainstream channels or wasn't mentioned at all. I think RT were doing their usual coverage of it, having the live streams and stuff like that, but a lot of it wasn't covered. A lot of the injuries that occur at those events are not being covered by the mainstream. They're only being covered by the alternative or independent or whatever kind of media journalism you want to call it. What else? Brexit chaos. Yeah, we've had the usual kind of shit going on here in the UK with the Brexit chaos. Theresa May trying to get the votes going for her again, and the rumour mill talking about how they're going to try and delay it until 2020 so that the Lisbon Treaty kicks in, and loads of stuff. Loads of fear propaganda and genuine information about the reality that this thing was never intended to actually be what people were told it would be. When they first announced the referendum, I said that even if they allow you to have a referendum, and even if they go through with Brexit, it will not be the result that you think it will be, in the sense of your expectation of them doing things like closing the borders and cutting the immigration and all that kind of level of everyday effect that people are feeling and responding to. That ain't going to change. So we've got all that going on at the moment in the UK. And then there was the Christchurch tragedy. I say tragedy, or maybe I should say alleged tragedy, because I can't say for certain whether anything happened at all. I haven't been able to look at much information about it yet. Those people that had been trying to cover it over the weekend, I saw that Jeff C had done a live stream on it. I went and clicked on it yesterday, and it's already been taken down. And his other video covering the subject has always been taken down, because the surge effect is back again to close in those fences and stop you talking about certain events, certain topics, certain ideas, or even asking questions. You're not allowed to ask questions. You're not allowed to wonder about what might have occurred compared to what they're telling you occurred. You just have to accept what the authority says. So yeah, and that's just, I mean, that's only what 3-4 things that I've mentioned that have occurred over this week and weekend. There's been some other stuff as well bubbling away in the background. You notice there hasn't been much mention of Venezuela for the past few days. Almost nothing. A little bit here and there. I saw a bit about Guaido talking about how now he's got the authority to request military aid from outside, military intervention from other countries. But other than that, not really much mention about Venezuela at the moment. Yeah, there's lots of other situations going on in the world that aren't being looked at or being deliberately avoided by the mainstream media and a large portion of the so-called alternative media. So yeah, the main thing to mention at the moment is this Wednesday, it will be the spring equinox. I think we'll be doing reality chat on Wednesday. So that might be interesting to see how things have progressed by the time we get to that fulcrum point when the seasons will hopefully change. The current global weather pattern is not its usual self. So, the equinox might not be as clearly a defined change in the general weather as it may have been in the past. But the cycle is still going on. So, we could get into argument and debate about the calendars and stuff like that, and what calendar system you're using or whatever. But it doesn't deny the positioning of the planet compared to where the sun is. That's what's important when you're talking about equinox and solstice and whatever. If we happen to have a calendar system that says it's March and such day, then that's what we have to represent that time period. But yeah, we're approaching this equinox, and at the moment, that crackdown on free speech, and as I've referred to before, the pseudonym surge, there has been a very distinct effort to push certain concepts such as anti-Semitism, and if you talk about globalization, that's basically a backhanded way of accusing the Jews of something. They're really stretching. They're stretching through just crazy semantics and pedantics and non sequitur, leaps of logic to try and justify their argumentation. This is that crackdown on free speech effect. And I put it, the reason I titled it that way in the subtitle, digitally branded. I'm not talking about how to create a brand in this digital environment. I'm talking about the effect of when in certain cultures or certain societies, they'll do things like put a brand on somebody's face to mark them as a thief or a murderer. They put the A on your forehead to mark you as an adulterer. They'll put a brand on you to mark you so that the rest of the population around you can see you for what you are or the crimes you've been committed for. A lot of what they're doing at the moment is that kind of effect. They're trying to stamp a digital brand on many people such that they can then justify shutting them down in one way or another, either outright shutting them down or removing their ability to broadcast on certain platforms or removing their funding by cutting down on their ability to monetize or however they earn their money. All these different ways are basically resulting in the same kind of results. They are marking people as not being human. You are outside of the sphere, that bubble of the matrix. So you are now verboten. You are no longer allowed to speak, or you certainly can't speak on certain subjects or questions. You are no longer allowed to participate. Your voice is considered unheard, or another way that they're labeling people is giving them a mental health label. You're being branded in the view of the public eye, because the public eye is now, to a large percentage of the time, looking into this media, this internet media environment. They're not looking at the world around them, they're looking at a fucking screen. So they know by giving you that digital brand, the public see that in their screen perception of reality. So whether you're guilty of something or not, they don't care, as long as they can get that brand to stick on you or to make the public accept that perception that there is a brand stamped onto you. I don't talk about this stuff to be a doom monger or fear porn seller or whatever. I know some people think that, but if they think that, I think they're missing the point and they're being deliberately ignorant. Ignorance is strength. Ignorance is not nescience. Nescience is just the innocent not knowing of something. There are many things in this reality that we do not have knowledge of. There are a lot of things in the world that you don't know about. There are a lot of things in this reality that you just don't know about. So nescience and ignorance are two different things. Nescience is just that innocent not knowing about something. But this system at the moment is reliant on ignorance. Ignorance is a willful choice to ignore something. So when the psychopaths are killing somebody in front of you and claiming it's because they threw an ice cream cone at them, you are willfully choosing to ignore that immoral action. You are in ignorance. And that ignorance is being built into a strength by the way they are manipulating and affecting this digital environment. So Orwell's idea of those three phrases, ignorance is strength is just one of them, but it is the epitome of what's going on at the moment. Control the speech that's allowed, put it into fences, compartmentalize it so that nobody can ever get a real picture of the overall effect, because you're not allowed to do that. That's why you're not allowed to link kind of a channel overview of YouTube. You're not allowed to do things like that. So you can't run a system where you go, okay, how many videos were uploaded about a certain topic, and then dig into that as a data set to find patterns that would give you evidence that they are actively and with intent manipulating the media environment. You're not allowed to do that. They will prosecute you. They'll use legislation against you to stop you from doing stuff like that. fenced-in, controlled environment, anybody that's outside of that has some kind of branding labelled, stamped onto them, so that they get ignored by everybody that's inside the fence. This is actually happening now. So I'm not saying this to be a doom monger, and I'm not saying it to be pessimistic. And I hope you don't take it as meaning that there is nothing you can do, because that's not true. You can still talk, and maybe talking with people rather than through a screen or through a digital environment, maybe that would be a better option, so that then you're not caught up in all those manipulations that they are doing within this environment. It's only a suggestion. I'm not saying it's the solution, because I think, there's also an argument that can be made that it's not a good idea to just leave them to it in this environment. That's part of the reasoning why I'm still here doing this, because I don't want to walk away and just let them get on with it, because then even more people will be suckered into their bullshit or their unrealistic perception of reality. They deliberately manipulated perception of reality. So I think, it's like what I was talking about earlier about running away from the system and thinking that you can live separate from it. You can't really. So you need to have a foot in both worlds, and be able to transmute from one side to the other, or transition. I'm not talking about being a tranny, but to transition from one thing to another. This environment is not the answer, but it is a tool that we can make use of to work towards helping the situation or alleviating a lot of the problems while we're still allowed to make use of it. So that's why this argument about the question of free speech, or the point of view of being able to utilize this technology to make use of that right of free speech, is absolutely central to everything that's going on at the moment. Something else I wanted to mention. I'll try and wind it up. I know I've been rambling around the bushes a lot. I listened to Max Egan on Saturday. I felt I had to post a comment that was sort of like a correction, because he made this one point about how if you accept the population numbers that we're told about today, and as part of that kind of statistical look at population numbers, demographics, etc., there is this claim that the number doubles every 63 years. Supposedly the number doubles. So what he'd done is taken that as a premise and gone back in time and said, okay, that means the number halves every 63 years. And he's counted backwards from the numbers we're told today, which is like 7 billion plus. And he's halved it backwards in time and claimed that only 400 years ago, there was only a few 100,000 people alive on the planet. The numbers don't work that way. So I posted a comment. I didn't exactly get any response. I didn't expect to, but the comment is there for other people to read as well. But that's just to me, it's a simple logical mistake, but you're then building an argument on that premise. And I'm not saying your argument is untrue in the sense of history is often lied about. The system tells us a hell of a lot of lies about what happened in history. But you're trying to build an argument or a claim that's based on a faulty premise, because the population calculations don't work that way. It's an exponential curve. It's not just a linear calculation. It's not just every 63 years you double. Every 63 years you double. It doesn't work that way. But anyway, I wanted to mention that, because that's part of that churning circus of this environment of information, giving people something to talk about that is not necessarily going to progress them to anywhere. It's been part of my argument of why certain subjects are not worth my time. My point of view, my opinion, my choice of what I do with my channel and my time. I don't bother with certain subjects because I don't think they're worth the time and the effort, and I feel they're not going to help people in any constructive fashion. They're going to create more problems than help. And the other thing I wanted to mention is listening to Steve's show on Saturday. And he was talking about a few different things. But the one main thing that I wanted to bring up and talk about, and hopefully we can sort of dig further into this as we go in, was that point of the phrase "do no harm." And Steve was talking from a point of view that it's an idiotic mantra that people use that is not actually helpful. And so I disagree with him on that. Maybe from the point of view of I'm interpreting how the phrase is used and what it represents differently to how he's interpreting it. I'm not sure, but I'll try and explain what I mean. I think from his point of view, and I'm not trying to put words in his mouth or speak for him, I'm just trying to interpret the way he was presenting what he was saying. I think from his point of view, he's saying it's unhelpful because many people will use it as a kind of excuse, almost like a get out clause. It can have a similar effect to the apathetic effect that a lot of the so-called New Age belief system, or I refer to it as a church, the New Age church. A lot about the New Age can have that same kind of apathy effect on people. So for many people out there, they hear that phrase "do no harm," and it can have a kind of apathetic effect on them because it makes them feel like, well, there's nothing I need to do about the problems that are going on. I just need to not do any harm from my point of view, and everything will be great. So I'm getting what he's trying to say from that kind of perspective. And often people can throw it out there as a generalized end-all answer. It's like a generalized conclusion to anything, which I do agree with him on. There's a lot of overuse of certain simplifications. I'll often use simplifications, so I'm guilty of doing that kind of stuff as well. There's often a lot of overuse simplifications that, in the long run, are not helpful for people to become fixated with and think that deals with all their problems. Just repeating it like a mantra, which I think is what he was trying to say, but I don't know for certain. But the reason I say I disagree with calling it an idiotic mantra and saying that it's not helpful to people is not because of the connections into the law structure itself. Because that was why I asked him in the chat, can you please give an example of a law that shows or reveals that the phrase "do no harm" is actually idiotic or wrong or incorrect in some manner. Because I can't think of a single law, even much legislation is keyed to this as well. I can't think of a single law that could not be interpreted as "do no harm." Right? Thou shalt not murder is do not harm somebody. Thou shalt not covet thy neighbour's ass is do no harm. Yeah, there's so many ways that it can be applied to that law structure. But I feel it's a useful phrase and it's a useful idea to give to people, not because of how it reinterprets the law structure or the codified infrastructure of the legal system, the judicial system. I feel it's useful for people because it does fill a gap where for many people, they don't have the time, the inclination, the willingness, or the energy to look into the law system in any depth for themselves. So they don't have the wherewithal to go through the process of spending the kind of time required to dig a bit deeper into stuff to do with the law and the legal system, such that they can get a good grounding so that they can get that message of not doing harm to each other. For some people, they need it very much clearly described and written down in bullet pointed black and white explanation of why they should do this or not do this. But I don't think it's necessarily unhelpful or wrong to give people something that is basically a simplification or a cut. It's like Occam's razor. It cuts to the chase. I gave an example of 2 of the 10 commandments, don't kill, don't covet your neighbour's ass, whatever. Do no harm can replace pretty much all of that. And for somebody who's not willing or not able or doesn't have the time or whatever to learn about the law and stuff, if you give them that instead, at least that's giving them the same kind of foundation that they can find if they have to actually dig into the law for themselves. Also, I found, and I found this for myself, but I also found the same effect in other people when you talk about the concept of do no harm and the ancient law. You know, the ancient law was do as they will, but do no harm. When you give people that information, it helps them realign their own energy. I feel they may not do it consciously. They might just go, they find themselves aligning in a certain way. Because when you give somebody that phrase, do no harm, in the English language, those words in that sentence, in that phrase, almost always, for 99.9% of people, they will initiate a thought process in their mind that makes them or gets them to think beyond themselves. Because most people don't begin that thought process with do no harm. Do you mean don't harm myself? Like most people, maybe if they're an extreme narcissist, a malignant narcissist, they might have that initial thought. But for the vast majority of everybody else, when you say to them do no harm, their thought process immediately goes to other people outside of themselves, the natural world around them, or other people, other beings around them, because they're thinking about the processes of, well, what do you mean by doing harm? And you're suggesting to me that I do no harm. How would what I do in life cause harm to others? And they're thinking about, well, what is it that I do that harms other people so that I can not do that? Or do I agree with not doing that? The whole thought process begins with that I'm thinking beyond myself. And that is the key reason why I think it's a worthwhile phrase, an idea to give to people. It's not meant to be a replacement for the judicial system. It's not meant to be a simplified replacement for the concept of having a law structure and an infrastructure to deal with those laws, to act as like what we call the judiciary, the police force, the judges, etc., etc. It's not meant to replace that because it doesn't need to replace it. One of the key, I feel, misdirections that the system relies on, because the system wants us to externalize our authority into it, so that then it can persuade us, oh, I've always had this authority because I'm your master. And it's like, no, you only have that authority because I consent to it, because I'm giving it to you, I'm externalizing it to you. But anyway, that process is, the do no harm phrase does not need or is not meant to replace the judicial system. The judicial system would become redundant if everybody was following that law. If everybody could follow that do no harm law, then you wouldn't need a judicial system. And I know that concept, what I'm just explaining here as a concept, is a utopian ideal. In other words, pragmatically, it's immensely unlikely that that would ever be a reality in everyday life around us, because people are fallible. And that's the problem with the system. The system is a mechanism, it's an engine, it's a toolbox. It is the people that go into the system that are the ones that initiate the poor use or the misuse of that mechanism, such that they end up causing harm, damage, death to others, exploitation of others. So if you can help people realign themselves such that they choose freely, willingly to not harm each other, then the system itself becomes a system of not doing harm to each other. You don't need to heal the system or tear it down and rebuild it, because it's the people themselves that are making that difference as they go about their day-to-day business, their day-to-day lives. This is something when I joined in on Krishna's chat, and I was chatting with one of the guys on there, and his attitude was very much that, like, somebody needs to take charge, somebody needs to take control, and the orders come from the top down, and the way to solve all the problems was from the top down. My argument is the opposite direction. This is why I prefer this kind of environment where, even though I know, because of the fact it's a public, it's a YouTube channel that's publicly available, and people can come and go, and people use pseudonyms, and they don't necessarily put themselves online. They'll use a fake name to keep some privacy and stuff like that. So I can't exactly have a clear, direct interaction with every single individual that's there. But the way I talk and the way I present my arguments and the way I use rhetoric is to address people on an individual level. Because every single group is made up by individuals. So if a group is causing harm or causing problems, the way to deal with that effect is by addressing all the individuals that make up that group. That way, the group will organically realign itself to stop doing harm. To me, it's the same with the system. The reason the system, from my point of view, I can quite easily point at the system and say, system bad, system evil. The system is causing the problem because of those misunderstandings that are put into people's thinking from an early level, from indoctrinating through the system itself. The misunderstanding that you have to fix or change the system itself in some way to deal with the problem. You can change the system all which ways from here to forever. It's not going to fix the problems, because if the people are still the same, if the people are still fallible and corrupted and weak and disingenuous and degenerate and blah, 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 use a load of bad names and adjectives to explain the point. But if the people are still the problem, it doesn't matter what shape the system is, it will still cause bad effects. It will still be detrimental to the body of the organism as a whole. That misunderstanding is perpetuated by the system itself, because it serves its purpose. It protects itself. It knows ways to deal with anybody that thinks they can attack the system to destroy it or change it from the inside or whatever. It's developed ways of dealing with them in the same way as your body has got antibodies, an immune system to deal with infection. It's got its immune system well established, gatekeepers, compartmentalized hierarchical structures, etc., etc., etc. So thinking that you can add another bit of legislation that would fix the problem ain't going to work. Thinking that you can vote somebody new in and they'll make it work this time because they're genuine and they want to do good things from the inside, not going to work. It has to be from the bottom up, from the base of the pyramid up. If each brick at that base of the pyramid changes their alignment, then the entire structure that it's built upon will change its shape as well. So a long way round, so I'll wrap up what I was saying. The do no harm thing, I think I get what Steve was trying to say of how it can be detrimental if misused or given out in an incomplete kind of fashion. As people have a simplistic idea of what you're talking about, and that then causes themselves problems and they project it onto others, etc., etc. But I don't think that means, that doesn't equal the phrase or the idea itself being bad or wrong or unhelpful. If it's well explained, given context and blah, 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 I think it can be very helpful to people. I found it helpful, same as I found the principle of gratitude. The two are very similarly aligned, and they help realign your own energy. The world is not full of bad people. That was one other thing I meant to mention, sorry. I don't know where you heard that from. I know some people out there have got that attitude. Some people think the world is full of bad people that need to be reformed or redeemed in some way, and everybody's evil. It's like the original sin idea. I've never agreed with that idea. I think it's bunkum. So I don't agree with that. I hope you don't think that I'm saying that everybody in the world is bad and everybody in the system is bad. They're not. There's lots of good people who try their damnedest to try and help. But my argument is that even though they've got the best intentions, and even though they may achieve some beneficial effects during their time in office and whatever, the overall problem is not going to change, because they're only just one little individual trying to fight against a tide of institutionalized problems that have entrenched themselves in such a way that they're not that easily dug out. So join in, man, if you are. I'm pretty much ranted out.
I was going to say, man, this is silly. Do no harm is not going to replace the justice system. It was the fucking basis for the justice system. It was the foundation for the justice system. And if you go back and read a book by Kropotkin called Justice as a Vengeance, things turned from doing harm, injury, or loss was something that involved the people involved, the people that had been stolen from, the person that had done it, and the community they lived in. And in fact, ironically, it was fucking church that came in and decided to take a hand in things. Now it was their job to punish the sinner. Yeah. So instead of getting your goods back, instead of fining somebody for giving you a black eye, now it was the church's job. Yeah. So you might not even get any compensation. Yeah. They might take all that. They might even take what was stolen from you to pay for their administration costs. And that is basically where the justice system came from. So there are good people in the system, but the system was built rotten right from the start. It wasn't about putting crime right, it wasn't about doing right. It was about people with power having an excuse to go for a victim, the person who had broken the social contract. And they would end up, you could have no money, so you've got to steal a pound loaf, and they'll come and fine you 50 quid. Where am I going to get the money, brother? Oh, well, you're a thief. Don't ask me that. Just go out and fucking get it. I mean, they're basically enabling people to commit more crime. The way their system is set up.
Yeah, some of the stuff that's going on at the moment, the build-up of pressure on people has led to an increase in crime, because more people are getting into a desperate situation where they feel that they've got no other choice, or for a lot, I think especially this is targeted at the youth. I know I felt it was that way when I was a young man. There's a lot of subtle influence that's projected at you of like, well, they get away with it, maybe you can get away with it too. You can have a fantastic life, a life of crime. You can have tons of money and all the boats and hoes and all that. A lot of it is sold, like the gangsterism is sold as being a choice. And then they turn around and go, oh, look, everybody, look at the problem we've got with all these gangsters. Oh, we need more legislation. We need more control so we can deal with the gangsters.
You talked about burnout as well, didn't you, Cookie? You mentioned Thomas Sheridan. I've not seen that video, but
he might have taken it down there. I don't know.
It was last week. I think I did see something pop up on my feeds, but I didn't get a chance to click. So if he's taking it off, I've missed the opportunity. That much comes up on your feeds, and you're flicking about and only get so much time and stuff. But just that sort of burnout thing, and just seeing a lot of that at the moment. I mean, it could be Gary. I mean, this is Gary's fault, seeing the bloody Mercury retrograde and everything. Everyone seems to be melting down, and there's lots of shit getting talked, and lots of people seem to be, I don't know, just seeming to have, be struggling generally with certain things. And like you say, certain things are being revealed as well. It's interesting, isn't it? So many truths coming out. I mean, what is truth? What is truth? I mean,
I never thought to mention the Michael Jackson, during this retrograde and during this period of chaos and argumentation, they mentioned that story. Yeah?
And this stuff isn't. I mean, the thing that pops up as well. This knowledge, this thing about what popped up was like shoot the messenger sort of thing. People getting attacked for delivering a truth message or something that's ancient. Really, that's just coming around again, like you mentioned before. Things come round, and people delivering the same message that's been talked about for hundreds, if not thousands, of years. You know, just reminding people of the truths that are there, and those truths can hurt quite a lot. So, you know, you've got to just move beyond those things and deal with them and know that you've got issues, or if those truths are really doing you some damage and you're just not, it's like, you know, people get stuck in paradigms, like I say, political paradigm, a religious paradigm, you know, they'll just be held there for, you know, forever. And when someone comes along and reveals an ancient truth, an ancient knowledge, that stuff that you realize you're being manipulated, they have a sort of resistance to that. It causes maybe cognitive dissonance in some, or that kind of effect, or, you know, I'm absolutely right. I'm absolutely right. This thing about natural law, you know, and things of this nature, you know, things that are actually, you can see with your eyes, you don't need to write them down. You know, they just, you know, they are what they are. The Fibonacci sequences, you can see natural law all around you. You know, you can see how you know, all of that stuff. That's what I think, you know, we talk about writing down and books and Bibles and all the rest of it. Yes, they have some, you know, people do look at those things, but I see them for what they are. They're just total taking you away from yourself. I don't need a third party representative in my life to tell me who I am. So there's that element that I come from. That's my stance on it all, really, with this. You know, you don't need an interloper to sort of tell you who, what, or whatever is. You decide that for yourself with what's around you and what you gain from your own experience in your own life, and what you see is what they're trying to maybe manipulate you with or whatever. But you get your own, you get into your own alignment properly and correctly without all of the, you know, the mess that they feed you with religion and politics and all the rest of it, to keep you nicely distracted and confused about who you really are. And that's all it's about, really. That is what religion is, opiate for the masses or whatever. But yeah, go on, Gary. You want to say something? So I know you got to go soon. So
I have got to go soon. This, by the way, this, you see the black figure at the back? I can't really play this video. Can I, Cookie? It's a Twitter video. But maybe I can move forward a bit. What he's doing, he's actually in the act of, he's just taking jumpers out of the department store and he's putting them in a bag. This is a copper. Yeah? But there he is, folding the jumpers up to put in the bag. And when the copper's friend notices that he's taking a picture, yeah, look, this is the copper, nicking it, this is looting.
Yeah.
He's fucking looting, yeah? And look, whoa, fuck. That's the copper just pushed him to the floor, yeah? And he was actually in the act of looting, yeah? And he got caught on camera. You're not seeing this on the media. It's, so the coppers are taking it into their own hands now, yeah?
And you won't, well, hardly anywhere you'll see any mention of the injuries that are occurring and stuff like that.
But what I wanted to just say as well, just to finish that off, Gary, about the burnout thing, you know, if it's getting, for a lot of people, like you say, you mentioned Thomas Sheridan and other people I've seen having difficult times or confused or getting angry and whatever, it's, you know, that's the time to go away and start, get into alignment, start to look at yourself, look in the mirror, start to do whatever it is you need to do to, you know, find yourself properly, you know, because religion ain't going to find it, and neither's fucking politics.
Well, I think Thomas Sheridan, what happened was he was partnered with this girl on Facebook and all the rest of it, and they used to go around trolling together. He betrayed her, kind of thing. She turned out to be such a better troll than he is that he just had to fucking back away from her.
Well, if I always just said it, I'll say it right from. I always said it from the start. If you go into this with the right, you've gone into this for the right reasons because you want to say something. You know, you just want to say something. It's there's things wrong in the world, or there's things that, you know, you just want to get out there. You know, to just see that, you know, there's I don't know, you're not the only one, if you know what I mean. You can connect with others, and, you know, you have to say something. You know, you can't just stay silent all the time. The internet gives you that opportunity. This type of medium gives us that route into that, and we can do that, and that's what we do. And it's just, like I say, some people agree or disagree, think we're crazy, think we're all, you know, whatever, but, you know, you're allowed to do it. The freedom of speech, as you say, the expression of what you want to say. And if things are wrong in the world, and you see things that are not right, wars and, you know, forced this and, you know, legislation that's creating you to be, you know, more of a slave to the system and all the rest of it, you know, they're shutting down that kind of speech. Well, that says everything, doesn't it? So we know we're, you know, over the target, so to speak, and whatever. So we're mentioning the things they don't like. We're criticizing. We're not stupid people. You know, the help of things like ancient knowledge and ancient truths coming out, and this, you know, we can look back and see cycles and know all about all the, you know, the manipulation, the Tavistock, the type of social engineering they've done on us for forever. You know, this type of thing. So, you know, the programs that people have, how they create Hegelian dialects, how they create the opposition and just basically just run the show. You know, it's a puppet show, you know, it's a theater and whatever. So, you know, we just, like I say, is it any wonder people do get burnt out? Or, you know, is it any, it doesn't surprise me. If you've not gone into it with a, like I say, with a passion for it, or you want to learn more, you want to, you know, like I say, it's something that, you know, people, if because they've been denied it or they can't see it for themselves, you just point them in a direction, then that's got to help people, hasn't it? And then these things float around, people talk, you know, and I think there's more people aware than what we realize, you know. Just because we're online, we don't, you know, we don't realize, you know, and all the shit we see, all the sort of censorship and all the bullshit. No, there's many people talking without being online, whatever. They're trying to listen, of course, with their, you know, devices to catch that conversations and whatever, to try and get a handle. But no, people will do what they do, and we see what we see, and we make judgments on what, you know, like I say, is there, you know. And if you're experiencing it firsthand, you're in these situations or whatever, then you know what's happening. You know they're trying to take over your country, or you know they're trying to fuck your country up, or whatever it is they're trying to do to your country, you know, in whatever country you're in. You know, they might be trying to create a war in it, or fuck it up politically, or screw around with, you know, taking more money off your taxations and this type of thing. That's what's really going on, and that's what people, again, are what we're seeing with the yellow vests and other European countries, and, you know, further afield, you know, getting fed up, and people are beginning to sort of, you know, like I say, not you know, push back a bit, and they don't like it. I mean, Macron said some quite harsh things the other day, I heard, you know, saying that if you're just at the protest, then you're responsible for all that violence that happened on Saturday. Which,
guilt by association.
Yeah, guilt by association. So they're very good at, you know, really sort of labeling everybody who's, you know, speaking out because the system's corrupt and wrong as being, you know, a criminal, or, you know, taking part in, like I say, accessory to crime or whatever. So yeah, anyway, I'll shut up. Has Gary gone? Sorry, Gary went. I was talking. Sorry, but yeah.
Go to, you know, the internet cafe's closing down because he's an hour in the future. So.
But what I did want to mention as well, I did see the Sun headline on Saturday where it said Facebook terrorists. I've noticed. So they're, you know, the attack. They really, I think they want to take Facebook down. Do you not think? Or they're trying to sort of.
They want to appropriate it. I don't think they'll shut it down, but they want to appropriate it to the degree that basically it becomes like a governmental institution, or the equivalent of a governmental institution. It might, the infrastructure of it, you know, because it's not just like one website. It's a massive amount of technical infrastructure that's now already established and already at a point where there is a vast majority of the population is connected into it, even if they don't all use it every day. Yeah. So I think the government could use that as a stepping stone to rapidly implement a social credit system. So they don't want to shut it down completely. They don't want to destroy it. They just want to make sure that it operates in the way they want.
As a utility?
Yeah. I think that's why they're dragging, or they're using Zuckerberg as a scapegoat, because he's not innocent in all this shit, yeah. But they're dragging him through the coals, as it were, so that then that gives them a justification to say, look, we're sorting it out. We're going to fix it and make it better.
The way I kind of see it with this digital shepherding, I think it's done these days through, like, the censorship done through a death of due process in the age of allegation, with real and fake censorship. The real censorship is if you're talking like any sense, you know what I mean? They want to fucking like cul-de-sac your channel, you know what I mean? Shut your fucking voice down. That's the real censorship. And then the fake censorship, the sort of Sex Pistols censorship, to like engender more publicity. I think we're seeing that with like Alex Jones, David Icke,
Yeah.
you know, people like Owen Benjamin and that. You know what I mean? I think it's like the boy that cried wolf. I think like a lot of these people, you know what I mean? It's like, it's fake censorship, man. You know what I mean? For more publicity.
When you were saying it, I was thinking David Icke as an example because of some of the banning him from Australia recently. You know, that effect. And I thought, you know, people need to be able to connect that for themselves in their own heads and question, well, if you really were somebody who is saying stuff that would bring down a government, you wouldn't be allowed to speak full stop. It's not that, oh, they ban you from certain venues and they'll call you an idiot when you're on the TV and shit. No, you'd be in a cell somewhere. You wouldn't be allowed to open your mouth. That's
it's like I think if you had any real power, you wouldn't be like cutting ribbons open and sitting there like out in public display. You know what I mean? Like a king or a queen or that. You'd be on a yacht somewhere, like dictating policy from the shadows. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
See that Tommy Sheridan, just before we went right on for him, I just think the funniest point, and it's great to see him imploding, man. It's a good laugh, man. But it's just the ultimate irony about him is obviously in it. It's like he is the narcissist
that he talks about.
Do you know what I mean? It's just so funny to watch it. Haha.
I remember we've spoken about that over the years, man. You know, often it came across that the kind of personalities he's talking about seem to emanate from himself. It's almost like he's writing a biography. But we'll see as things progress with that. And I do think there's going to be others. This time period seems to be when some of those that are seemingly well established or part of the scene, as it were, are going to get knocked down for one reason or another. They're going to change. Maybe it's a generational age thing. The people that I've been used to as being part of the scene are gradually being changed and replaced with a new generation of people that they're bringing in. So like that Owen Benjamin that you mentioned, I didn't really know much about him other than I've seen the name here and there. I'd heard people mention some of his stuff. But recently, the effect that's been occurring, I agree with you absolutely. And this is deliberately using fake censorship as a victimhood badge of kudos that then they use to rally people to their cause. So it's acting as like a, I used the analogy earlier before we went live. It's like deliberately laying a turd to attract the flies.
But it's creating a siege mentality and like a cult leader sort of.
Well, I said before, people talking shit before. It's there's a lot of that going on at the moment.
100%, mate.
Go on, Dave.
It seems they're talking about like transition in that, right? I think I've said that a couple of years now. Like the Hindu festival is coming up. I think it's called Mahashivratri or something like that, unless I've made a right ass of that. It's around about this time of year. It's amazing. It's about the upsurge and that. I've seen like on YouTube one year, just thought it was amazing, man. So if anybody wants to check it out, you know what I mean? I've spoke about what I think the paradigm shift that we're going to come up. It's like what I think is inevitable, but we're headed towards a couple of times, so bear with me. Full automation, universal credit, humanity redefines itself, technological singularity, transsexual, transhuman, chimera agenda, I call it, man. The merger of technology, human, fucking animal, vegetable, mineral, whatever, you know what I mean? The gender fluidity, etc. But I think this is why we're seeing the rise of these rational Christians like that Owen Benjamin, Peterson, Shapiro, all of these in the intellectual arena, because they're going to be up against the ones that go with the technology, the new Luddites versus the new sort of revolution. Zoltan Easton, he says that it's going to be the major clash coming up, the ones that's holding on to religion versus the ones that embrace AI, the digital Christ, resurrection of the Silicon Savior.
Well, there's a digital Buddha. I saw that the other day on RT. Did you see that one?
Yeah.
A robot Buddha in the temple somewhere out in, I can't remember where it was now. Thailand, was it?
I think Korea. I think.
how all these things are going to be infused, you know.
I like the analogy of the technological dark ages. We're entering a phase where if somebody chooses, like you say, like they choose the new E-Christ and they adopt the technology and they have that augmented reality effect plugged into themselves in one way or another, they're like the new enlightened coming out of the dark ages. And those that are being portrayed as the religionists, they're being hemmed in and deliberately portrayed as being old-fashioned extremist dinosaurs, the old way, the old paradigm, all that kind of stuff.
I wonder how many downloads the Jesus app would get.
Well, there'll be a lot of people linked into their neural lace, their Neuralink, Elon Musk, their headset.
Well,
you know what I mean? Whoever the most expensive brain chip, they're going to be the smartest person in the world, aren't they?
Yeah.
So, but they're going to have to merge with the technology, you know.
That's another reason why I think it's part of the. It makes sense as an analogy to call it like a dark ages, because those with the resources, the wealth, whatever required to access that technology are going to get it ahead of everybody else. So the gap between those who currently have the wealth to be able to do this kind of stuff, the gap is just going to get insane. It's going to be like two different worlds.
After a certain point, the commodity changes from being like money and stuff, done it, to being like knowledge about this technology
and energy, just purely energy in one form or another, because they'll transmute it for whatever they need. The other thing I was going to say as well is, like, I know I often end up talking about bad events, some of the bad stuff that's happening. I think that's why a lot of people think I'm talking fear porn, because I tend to talk about the bad stuff more than anything else. But on the back of all that, there's been this increased propaganda push for that kind of environment, like the VR environment, the new tech, the insertable, the plug-inable, the implantable tech that's coming along. So they are in effect offering people, like, you look at one part of the media and all you get is pain and suffering and fear and terror. And then on the other half of it is, you could live in a blissful environment, paradise. It can be whatever shape you want it to be. All you need to do is take the pill. Take the pill.
Look into my eyes.
Carrot in the stick.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
that was a scary thing, that HoloLens, because I told you last week, where you put the goggles on or you put them over your eyes and suddenly it just automatically reads your iris. It just scans it immediately. That's the only way you can operate it, which I found was creepy. But suddenly you just, even you wanted to try it out, you couldn't try it out because it would just take your iris straight away. And those things are there on smartphones right now. If you want to have that kind of ID on your phone with the iris or whatever, your face or your fingerprint. Take your pick, whichever you like.
It was a kind of a merger between what the ultra real and what this sort of VR world experience, that crazy shit that happened in New Zealand. You know what I mean? If anybody actually seen the fucking videos, man.
I haven't seen the videos. No, I missed out in a sense. Not missed out. I didn't really want to see it, but it didn't come up. It's not come up on anything I've looked at. So they must have washed it or whatever. I don't know.
They over the last couple of days.
So I've missed.
They've rapidly erased a fuckload of stuff.
Yeah.
I was kind of.
I've seen a few of the still photos, and I know what you mean. In the sense of, it was like watching somebody playing a first-person shooter game, and that the merge of reality and VR game kind of stuff. Man, that was extreme.
Disturbing, definitely. And regardless of its veracity, you know what I mean, there's people's going to argue whether it's a hoax or not video, or it's what's happening on the back of it, isn't it? You know what I mean? Is it Jacinda Ardern, the MP, New Zealand? The gun laws will change, she said. You know what I mean? So no discussion, no fucking, not so much as a buy or leave. You know what I mean?
And even though, as I say, they've rapidly scrubbed it, most of it, I know it's still out there anyway, but that's the point. They left it for long enough that the way the internet works, you can guarantee that that's out there forever now. That's not going away. If you want to, you will be able to search and you will find it. Yes.
Yeah.
And in a similar fashion, I spoke about this years ago when they had the one video of the beheadings that was doing the rounds. And then at the time it was Cameron was still in seat. And he put out a statement saying, if anybody even looks at these, they are a terrorist. We will consider you a terrorist. Yeah. I think they've done the same thing with this event. They deliberately, they allowed it to be out there for long enough that they can guarantee that it's out there forever. And now they'll use it as a tracing system, as a tracking system to label people as extremists. You looked at that video, you are now on a list as a potential extremist.
Because it was who was it just said that? Yavid, what's his face in the government said that yesterday. Made that statement saying that not similar to what Cameron said. So yes, you're right.
I think that's the two most important things that happen, right? She's saying the gun laws will change, right? No discussion. It's like they will be changed arbitrarily without vote or a mandate, and your speech will be compelled to comply with the state slogan censorship. It will be defined as terrorism. You know what I mean? There's also the lone gunman, white extremist aspect to consider. He doesn't score too highly on the intersectionality scale these days.
And if you look at it from things like his manifesto,
what
was it called? Something like the Great Movement or something like that. The Great
Replacement.
One of his heroes, Anders Breivik.
That's what I was going to say. It connects back to that whole narrative. And this is why, even though I know some people have already started mentioning this kind of thing, but you're up against that problem of the system is shutting down any genuine questioning or investigation from the public. But that connection again links back through to the Israeli structure, the Zionist system, the Zionist propaganda system. I know we spoke about it a lot when the actual Anders Breivik thing happened,
But he's very kindly laid it all out for us in a nice 73-page manifesto. We usually laugh and say it's a 23-page Facebook manifesto, don't we? But this time it's a 73-page manifesto, so it should be nice and simple.
And he wrote, didn't he write on the gun casings and on the gun itself all the names of the so-called other so-called whatever. Yeah,
that was a really good way of cementing a lot of the misinformation and hoaxes, because now the system, the media in particular, but the authorities are doing this on purpose. They can reference this particular event and go, look, such and such name is on his gun. So that proves that what we told you originally about that person and the event they're connected with must be true, because this guy's included it on his gun. It will give them more, not genuine foundation, but a claim of more foundation to a lot of the narratives that they've been continuing, that many people have pointed out over the last few years and gone, that's either an outright hoax or a false flag, or it's certainly not what the official narrative says it is.
They're already making the movie, probably. That's surprised me. Because they had the movie of Anders Breivik, didn't they, recently? I remember that came out. So there'll be all that crap in the future, So, rise of the right, isn't it? That sort of we've been yakking on about for ages.
Yeah, the lone wolf, homegrown, extremist, religious, right-wing terrorist.
Yeah, and now they go out live and do shoot 'em ups live on Facebook, like say Facebook terrorists. It's just, That was on Friday. When was that on Friday? Wasn't it Friday that happened?
I think
that's
so.
why I missed it. It was right on the weekend. I was just busy, and I didn't really. I think I got up Friday morning. That was it. I got up Friday morning, and they were talking about it. And then I didn't really get much chance to actually see anything online or anything like that till really about today, really, or Sunday. So busy doing other things, not online.
It's been one of those, like I said, it's been one of those weeks It does that sometimes. It comes in bursts, but then the burst is like just a cacophony of stuff going on.
Well, it's funny because
that's why I wanted to mention the Gaza bombing, because this is a common tactic that they've done before. Whenever they're planning to do one of their incursions or one of their main operations, like the cast lead operation and whatever, there is this effect of tons of other shit going on in this environment. So it's like they let their counterintelligence and their misinformation agents know, they give them the nod, that like during this period we want you to increase all activities, so that you create this saturation effect that just either distracts people or entraps them into some bullshit argument or drama or conflict, or it just wears them out through the sheer level of torrent of information of stuff going on that you're throwing at them. Yeah, it's like when they'll try and use things like they'll have people sending you loads and loads of emails asking you questions that have nothing to do with the event they're trying to cover up. They just want you to go the other direction. Yeah, so it's like them walking around the maze throwing cheese in a particular direction, trying to get all the mice to go that way. And they do this. You can see the pattern of this. There's enough, I think, evidence still online that you can see the pattern of this over the last however many years. Whenever Israel initiates a major operation against Gaza or somewhere, the Palestinian people, there is this chaotic effect that takes place in the internet medium. The news is filled with stories that's nothing to do with what's going on in Israel. And this level of the media environment, where it's people like us having these kind of conversations, we get inundated with ideas or topics or questions or trolls turning up and harassing you to try and get your attention or poke your buttons or whatever. That level of effect always increases every time they're doing something like that, like bombing Gaza over the weekend. I know it might sound like I'm picking on them. I'm not. I'm pointing out what goes on.
Yeah.
Who's responsible and who's culpable for this shit? Well, it seems to always be the same usual fucking suspects. And that's why they turn around and say, oh, you're just blaming the... Yeah, I won't say it because I know the video will get tagged. But
it's been a slow virtual sort of genocide of the Palestinians, hasn't it, over the past 60 years or so now? Slow sort of just push them out, and we're at the sort of tail end of it, if you like, now, when you see what they're living like now.
Yeah, but some people are still convinced, they're still in that frame of mind, frame of perception, that there's nothing bad going on there. I can't, that to me is one of the things that just worries me, is the way people can see stuff so blatant in their face, and yet they'll just willfully ignore it. They'll willfully deny it. That's not nescience. That's willful participation. It's a good way of repeating the beginning. Ignorance is strength. Anyway, I think I'll wind it up at that point. Please don't take the stuff we're talking about as being negative and disempowering. Whatever, it's meant to be completely the opposite. You can't be really empowered unless you know the dangers that are out there, so that you're prepared to deal with them.
Exactly. Yeah. It's called getting spiritual armor on and things of this nature, and building yourself up to the real truths that do fucking shake your world. They really fucking do, and you've got to be prepared for that. And it's not an easy path. I've always said this, not an easy path. You've got to do a lot of shedding of a lot of stuff, a lot of realizations, and with that though comes more awareness, more growth, more back into alignment, more knowing yourself and all the good stuff. But it takes work. That's all I'll say. It's not easy, but it's good as well. It's good. You got to be positive. That's the thing. It starts to work. It starts to go. And I've been doing this for, I'd say 2003 onwards, when it really went vroom, when it changed for me myself personally. So I know it's not a fucking easy path at all. So, but you get on with it. It's great. There's been some fantastic times, and there's more fantastic times to come, I'm sure. But, you just get on with your life, and you get into alignment, and you stop being sort of, if you like, you just get to know yourself. And that's when all this other stuff falls away. it goes away. It really does. And you free yourself from that fucking bullshit in your mind, in yourself, and you get more in balance. And that's what it's about. So
in a connected way as well, synchronistic again. This was episode number 11, second series.
Yes.
Number 11, and it's during springtime. This is the episode that I do just before we get to the equinox. I find that no coincidence. The timing of that, maybe, some people say, it's just coincidental because you started with number 1 at the beginning of the year, so it ended up being that. No, I don't think it is coincidence. Number 11 happens to be the right kind of number. And I'm not talking Kabbalism or Kabbalistic shit. Talking about the 11 is a symbolic representation of the 1 becoming 2. It's not dualism. It's about the beginnings of the everything, because it began with 1 and then it started to spread. It became 2 and then more and more and more. So springtime, and this is the 11th episode, which is the same as saying the 2, the beginnings of the 2. Hopefully that makes sense. Maybe.
Well, spring, like I say, spring's on its way, which is good.
It's here now, even though it might not seem it.
Well,
It
it
is
doesn't seem
here.
it. It's a bit gold, but yeah.
We might see another kick back to wintry kind of weather. If last year is anything to go on of the way the season has been messed up, then now that we've had a sort of little bit of a gap through February and into March where it's been a bit warmer and more clement weather, I think now we might get some real cold and maybe some snow and stuff again.
Well, we had floods here around this area where I live. There was flooding over the weekend because it just literally just rained like mad for about like non-stop for like 15 hours or something. So yeah, it was pretty rough on Saturday, and some places did get pretty flooded out. So the fields are all flooded. They're like lakes, It's like so yeah.
Not more precipitation.
Yes. There's loads in the chat tonight. I was had a quick look at the chat, so loads in there tonight.
I was just looking back across and thought, it's
going too quick.
No, again.
If you don't click on it for a while and you go back and look at it, it's going that fast. I'll just give up with it.
Apologies to anyone if you were trying to post a question or say something to us or whatever. No. Hello, Charlotte. The wizard knows. What does the wizard know? I don't know. You'll have to ask him.
Is it okay to just add just the final thought? I think see the phrase "do no harm." I think that needs a real discussion to explore it fully, And I personally would just welcome anyone that wishes to have an adult, respectful conversation here, about these topics. You know what I mean? That's always welcome. You know what I mean? Like, well, just to man up and just to say personally, Steve Turgoose, man, fuck, I regret the way I initially approached you when I had some questions that I should have asked you in private, just the way that you put it out there, like on your last hangout, like if we had questions, just put it to you personally. That's what I should have done. So as a man, I'm going to man up and say I regret the way we've started off on the fucking wrong foot, and I am personally open to having a discussion with you going forward, mate. You know what I mean? So all the best.
Cool.
Sorry, I heard myself muted. And cool, man. Yeah, definitely. The only thing I'd add to that is I'm not doing an open hangout. I just want to make sure nobody gets the wrong idea and think that's like an open invitation to anyone that wants to come and join in. Sorry, I don't do an open hangout.
No, I wasn't implying that. I just mean me personally. I'm always ready to have a conversation with people who are ready.
I didn't think you were, right, but I just wanted to be clear, just in case somebody in the audience thinks that that's what it meant.
Open the doors, Cookie. Let the let the madness begin.
Yeah, I know there's a few people out there that have tried that kind of argumentation on me before. But you won't let me come on and talk. And it's like, yeah, because you're a fucking dick that just wants to take a shit on everything we're doing, mate. So no, you can fuck off. Yeah, you want to say that shit, you go and do it on your own channel. You can talk whatever shit you want on your own channel, mate.
As they said, get people in who can have a a good discussion.
Yeah.
It's not easy to get people together to do that. It's difficult.
And that's the thing. Just it's like these are emotive topics. You know what I mean? So passions are going to run high, man.
Yeah,
you know what
definitely.
I mean?
Yeah. And then we haven't even mentioned paedophilia yet. You know what I mean? So that there's lots of subjects, like you say, that get people very emotive and start to sort of get angry. And that's
Some of them obviously do deserve an emotive response, just simply because they are abhorrent, immoral, extremes, whatever. But when it comes to what we're doing with this kind of stuff, then you still need to be able to discuss about it. Even if it does upset you greatly, that's understandable that it's upsetting, because some of this stuff is fucking upsetting. And you wouldn't be, I was going to say normal. I don't want to say normal, but I know people get what I'm trying to say. Yeah, you wouldn't be a healthy human being if you didn't get upset about some of this shit. But we still need to be able to discuss it and have that kind of ability to have a rational discourse on things. Yeah, it's no good just shouting at each other or just saying, "Oh, you're shit, you are." Yeah, that's going to get nowhere, is it?
No.
But,
no.
Yeah,
No point living in that echo chamber,
Yeah. Thanks to everyone for joining in. Thanks to Gary, he had to leave earlier, obviously. And thanks to people in the chat room. As I said many times before, but just to say it again, I do read through the chat room always. Sometimes it might take me a day to get the time to sit and go through it, but you're not ignored. It's not just there and I'll leave you to it and I ignore what you're doing. No, not at all. I always read through the chat. So thank you for participating. It is primarily there for you guys, you people who are listening to us chatting. It's your space to be able to interact with each other and maybe respond to what we're saying and what we're talking about. But that's what it's there for you to make use of. So thank you for participating. And it's not a requirement. If you don't want to join in the chat, you don't have to. So thanks to all those people who like to just lurk and listen and watch and whatever. That's great as well. Thank you for your attention. Don't let it get to you. Try and be optimistic. We're getting into the spring, so the sun's going to be more in the sky more often, hopefully, as long as they stop trying to hide it. So enjoy the sunshine. Feel that rising energy, that spring energy of life. All this other bad shit that's going on, it's there, it's happening, but that doesn't deny the natural cycles are also continuing. There is life, there is rebirth, there is growth, there is progression. Yeah, be optimistic. It'll make a change to your life.
Cheers, Cookie. Thanks for tonight.
Maybe a bit too cheesy, but hopefully it gets the point across. Thanks again, folks. We'll be back on Wednesday on the Reality Chat channel.
Yep.
Raconteurs News will be on again tomorrow with another guest that I'm not personally keen on, but they're having the guests on. And hopefully Steve Tagoose will be on Saturday on his show. Hopefully we'll get the chance to talk some more about some of this stuff. But until then, I was just checking. I hadn't got any notifications, but sorry. Thanks again, folks. Take care. Say good night. Good night.
Bye.
Cat cheese.